Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defiant, watching the stars drift by through the main viewing screen. The ship had been exploring the Kepler sector for 3 months now, mapping new star systems and looking for planets that humans could live on. It was quiet work, but Jake enjoyed the peace of deep space. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," said Lieutenant Commander Amy Brooks from her station. She was the ship's communications officer, and her voice carried a note of concern that made Jake turn around. "What kind of strange?" Jake asked, walking over to her console. Amy's fingers moved quickly across her controls. "It's a transmission, sir. Very powerful. It's coming from outside our galaxy, but somehow it's being broadcast on all human frequencies." Jake frowned. No alien species had ever contacted humans before. They had found a few dead worlds with ruins, but nothing living. "Can you put it on screen?" "Yes, sir. But Captain, there's something else. The message is in perfect English." Before Jake could ask how that was possible, the main screen flickered and changed. The image that appeared made everyone on the bridge gasp. A tall figure stood before them, at least 8 feet high, with pale blue skin that seemed to glow with its own light. Its eyes were pure white, and when it moved, Jake could see energy crackling around its body like lightning. "Primitive beings of the species called human," the figure said. Its voice was deep and seemed to echo from everywhere at once. "I am High Admiral Kirashan of the Zephyrian Fleet. We are the gods of this galaxy. We have ruled the stars for 10,000 of your years." Jake felt his heart start beating faster. The bridge was completely silent except for the alien's voice. "We have watched your pathetic attempts to spread across the stars," Kirashan continued. "Your small ships, your weak weapons, your short lives, you amuse us like insects trying to build cities." The alien waved one hand, and the image changed to show a massive fleet of ships. Each vessel was made of what looked like crystal, and they moved through space in perfect formation. There were hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "But your amusement value has ended," Kirashan said. "You have expanded too far from your home world. You dare to claim planets in systems that belong to the gods. This cannot be allowed to continue." Jake looked around the bridge. His crew was staring at the screen in shock. He could see fear in their eyes, but also anger. Nobody liked being called an insect. "Therefore," the alien continued, "we give you this command. You will surrender your homeworld and all your colonies to the Zephyrian Empire. You will do this within 7 of your solar cycles. If you obey, we will allow some of you to live as our servants. If you refuse, we will show you why mortals should not challenge gods." The image changed again. This time it showed a large asteroid floating in space. Kirashan raised both hands and energy began to flow from his body. The energy was bright blue and seemed to pulse with power. Without any weapons or ships, just using his mind, the alien focused the energy on the asteroid. What happened next made Jake's blood run cold. The asteroid, which was at least 5 miles across, simply vanished. Not exploded, not broken apart. It was there 1 second and gone the next, leaving only empty space. "That is the power of the gods," Kirashan said. "We can destroy your worlds with a thought. We can end your species without effort. You have 7 days to surrender. If you do not, we will come to your home system and teach you the price of defying divine will." The transmission ended, and the bridge was left in complete silence. Jake stared at the empty screen, his mind racing. 7 days. 7 days to save the human race from beings who could destroy asteroids with their minds. "Sir?" Amy's voice was quiet. "What should we do?" Jake took a deep breath. He thought about Earth, about the billions of people living their lives without knowing that gods from another galaxy had just threatened to destroy them all. He thought about the human colonies, families trying to build new homes among the stars. He thought about his own daughter back on Earth, probably in school right now, learning about the planets humans had found. "Send a reply," Jake said finally. Sir? Amy looked confused. What should I say? Jake walked back to the captain's chair and sat down. He looked at the screen where the alien had been, and his jaw set in a hard line. Tell them this. Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth Colonial Fleet acknowledges their message. However, humanity does not recognize any species' claim to divine authority over human worlds. We are willing to discuss territorial boundaries through diplomatic channels, but we will not surrender our homes to anyone. Amy's eyes went wide. Captain, they just destroyed an asteroid with their mines. Are you sure you want to send the message, Commander? Jake said firmly. Amy's hands shook slightly as she sent the reply. Within minutes, another transmission came through. This time, Kirishan's white eyes seemed to burn with anger. You dare refuse the gods? The alien's voice was like thunder. You pathetic creatures think your metal ships and primitive weapons can stand against divine power? Very well. You have chosen extinction. In 7 days, the Zephyrian war fleet will arrive in your home system. We will show the galaxy what happens to mortals who forget their place. The transmission cut off, leaving the bridge in darkness for a moment before the normal lights came back on. Commander Brooks, Jake said, his voice steady despite the fear in his chest. Set course for Earth, maximum speed. Send a priority message to Fleet Command. Tell them we have a situation that requires immediate attention from the highest levels. Yes, sir, Amy said, her fingers flying over her controls. Jake stood up and walked to the front of the bridge. Through the viewing screen, he could see the stars streaking by as the ship jumped to faster than light speed. 7 days to get home. 7 days for humanity to prepare for a war against gods. Captain, said Lieutenant Tom Parker, the ship's tactical officer, do you really think we can fight them? I mean, they destroyed that asteroid like it was nothing. Jake was quiet for a long moment. He thought about human history, about all the times people had faced impossible odds. People said the same thing before humans learned to fly, before they reached the moon, before they traveled to other stars. There was always someone who said it couldn't be done. Maybe we can't fight them, Jake said finally. Maybe they really are gods and maybe we're just insects to them. But you know what? Even insects can bite, and if they think humanity is going to roll over and die without a fight, they don't know humans very well. He turned to face his crew. We're going home, people. We're going to warn Earth about what's coming. And then we're going to find out if gods can bleed. The USS Defiant raced through space toward Earth, carrying news that would change everything. Behind them, in the darkness between galaxies, the Zephyrian war fleet began to move. The countdown to humanity's greatest test had begun. 7 days to prepare for war against gods. 7 days to prove that mortals could stand against divine power. 7 days to show the galaxy that humanity would never kneel to anyone, no matter how powerful they claimed to be. The stars watched in silence as 2 species prepared for a battle that would decide the fate of countless worlds. The emergency meeting room in the United Earth Colonial Defense Building was packed with people. Fleet Admiral Ryan Carter sat at the head of the long table, watching as military leaders, scientists, and government officials filled every seat. The recording from the USS Defiant had arrived 6 hours ago, and now everyone was trying to figure out what to do. "Play it again," said General Kevin Hayes, his voice tight with worry. Dr. Lisa Park, head of the Xenobiology Institute, touched her tablet and the holographic display showed the alien again. High Admiral Kira Shan appeared in the center of the room, 8 feet tall and glowing with blue light. His white eyes seemed to stare at everyone as he spoke about gods and surrender. When the recording reached the part where the alien destroyed the asteroid with his mind, several people shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. General Hayes slammed his fist on the table when it was over. "This is impossible," he said. "No species can have that kind of power. There has to be some kind of trick." Dr. Park shook her head. "I've analyzed the transmission data 20 times. The energy readings are real. They somehow converted pure thought into physical force. The physics shouldn't work, but it happened." Admiral Susan Torres leaned forward. "We need to try talking to them. Maybe we can reach some kind of agreement. Give them a few empty systems, in exchange for leaving Earth alone." "Absolutely not," General Hayes shot back. We don't negotiate with terrorists, even alien ones. If we give them anything, they'll just want more. Fleet Admiral Carter raised his hand for silence. What about our fleet? How many ships can we put together? Commander Rick Stone, who ran the shipyards around Mars, checked his tablet. We have about 200 combat-ready vessels. 50 are heavy cruisers, the rest are destroyers and frigates. The USS Vengeance is our most powerful ship, but compared to what we just saw... He didn't finish the sentence. Everyone knew what he meant. Human ships were impressive by human standards, but they looked like toys compared to the crystal vessels in the alien recording. There's something else, Dr. Park said quietly. I've been studying their technology. Those crystal ships aren't just pretty to look at. The crystal structure seems to channel and amplify their psychic abilities. The ships and the aliens work together like one giant weapon. President Helen Wade, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke up. How long do we have? Captain Morrison's ship will reach Earth in 2 days, Admiral Carter replied. That gives us 5 days to prepare before the aliens arrive. The room fell silent. 5 days to get ready for a war against gods. What about evacuation? Asked Dr. Anna Walsh, a physicist who had been working on new weapon designs. We could move people to the outer colonies. There's no point, Admiral Torres said sadly. If they can destroy asteroids with their minds, distance won't matter. They'll hunt down every human settlement in the galaxy. President Wade stood up. Everyone looked at her as she walked to the window that showed Earth spinning slowly below. Cities sparkled like jewels on the night side of the planet. Billions of people were down there, living their normal lives, not knowing that aliens from another galaxy wanted to destroy them. I've made my decision, she said without turning around. We fight. General Hayes nodded firmly. Good. I'll start mobilizing every ship we have. Wait, Dr. Walsh interrupted. I might have something that could help. I've been working on a new type of weapon. It uses quantum particles to disrupt energy fields. If their power comes from some kind of energy manipulation, maybe we can interfere with it. Dr. Park looked interested. How close are you to a working prototype? I need 3 days, maybe 4. But I'll need all the resources we can spare. Admiral Carter made notes on his tablet. Done. Commander Stone, I want every shipyard working around the clock. Install Dr. Walsh's weapons on as many ships as possible. What about the USS Vengeance? She's already in dry dock for upgrades. Stone replied. Chief Engineer Maya Chen can have her ready in 4 days if we push hard. Do it. I want our best ship leading the defense of Earth. Meanwhile, in the outer colonies, people were starting to hear rumors about something big happening. On New Terra, the largest human settlement outside the solar system, Colony Administrator Peter Young was dealing with confused and frightened colonists. Is it true? Asked Maria Santos, who ran the farming district. Are aliens really coming to attack us? Peter looked tired. He had been awake for 36 hours straight, coordinating with Earth and trying to keep people calm. We don't know all the details yet, but Earth Command has ordered all non-essential personnel to prepare for possible evacuation. Where would we go? Asked Dr. Ben Clark, the colony's chief medical officer. If Earth isn't safe, nowhere is safe. Peter didn't have a good answer for that. The truth was, if the aliens were as powerful as they claimed, running might not help. But he couldn't tell people that. His job was to keep them calm and organized. Back on Earth, the shipyards around Mars were working at full speed. Sparks flew, as workers installed new weapons and armor on every available ship. Commander Stone moved from ship to ship, checking on progress and pushing his teams to work faster. How's it going with the Vengeance? He asked Chief Engineer Maya Chen. Maya wiped sweat from her forehead. We're installing the new quantum torpedo launchers now. The power systems are being upgraded to handle Dr. Walsh's weapons. She'll be ready, but it's going to be close. In her laboratory, Dr. Walsh stared at complex equations covering 3 entire walls. Her quantum weapon theory was sound, but building it in just a few days was almost impossible. Her assistant, Dr. Jim Norton, brought her another cup of coffee. Any luck with the particle alignment? He asked. Anna shook her head. The quantum field keeps collapsing. I need to find a way to stabilize it, or the weapon will be useless. What if we used a containment field like the ones on fusion reactors? Anna stopped writing and looked at him. That might actually work. Get me the technical specifications for our most advanced fusion containment system. As Jim ran to get the data, Anna allowed herself a small smile. Maybe, just maybe, they could build something that would hurt the aliens. On the bridge of his flagship, far away in space between galaxies, Emperor Vexathul received War Speaker Nixathera's report about the human response. They refused? He asked, his voice full of disbelief. Yes, my lord. They actually sent a message declining our generous offer. They want to negotiate. The Emperor's white eyes flared with anger. Mortals dare to refuse the gods? Impossible. No species has ever been so foolish. What are your orders, my lord? Vexthul stood up from his crystal throne. Energy crackled around his body as his rage grew. Prepare the war fleet. We will make an example of these humans that the entire galaxy will remember. When we are finished, no species will ever again forget their place. War Speaker Nixathera bowed deeply. It will be done, my lord. How many ships should I prepare? All of them, the Emperor said coldly. We will crush these insects so completely that their name will become a warning to others. The age of mortal defiance ends now. The Zephyrian war fleet began to move through space, thousands of crystal ships, heading toward the small blue planet where humans lived. They moved faster than light itself, bending space around them with pure mental power. On Earth, Admiral Carter stood in the command center, watching displays that showed human ships gathering around the planet, 200 ships against thousands. Conventional weapons against godlike power. It looked hopeless. But as he watched, he saw something that made him proud. Every single human ship was moving into position. Not one captain had refused to fight. Not one crew had asked to run away. They all knew they were probably going to die, but they were still here. Sir, his aide said quietly, Captain Morrison's ship just entered the solar system. He'll dock in 6 hours. Admiral Carter nodded. Good. I want to hear his report personally, and prepare a message to all fleet commanders. Tomorrow we start war games. We have 4 days to figure out how to kill gods. Outside, Earth continued to spin peacefully in space. The sun shone on Sabandine cities and farms, on mountains and oceans. Children played in parks while their parents worked and worried. Soon all of that would be threatened by beings who claimed divine authority over the galaxy. But humanity was getting ready to fight back. They might not be gods, but they were stubborn, clever, and absolutely refused to give up. The countdown to the greatest battle in human history had begun. The first sign of the alien fleet was a strange ripple in space itself. The stars seemed to bend and twist as something massive pushed through the fabric of reality. On the bridge of the USS Vengeance, Admiral Carter watched his sensors go crazy, with readings they had never seen before. How many ships? He asked his tactical officer. Lieutenant Colonel Beth Turner checked her displays twice before answering. I'm reading over 3,000 vessels, sir. They're bigger than anything in our database. Carter felt his stomach drop. 3,000 ships against their 200. But he kept his voice steady when he spoke to the fleet. All ships, this is Admiral Carter. Remember your training. Stick to the plan. We may be outnumbered, but we're fighting for our home. The Zephyrian war fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. Their crystal ships caught the light from the sun and threw it back in rainbow patterns that would have been beautiful if they weren't so terrifying. Each ship was at least twice the size of the largest human vessel, and some were as big as cities. On the flagship Divine Wrath, War Speaker Nix Thera stood before a viewing screen that showed the tiny human fleet waiting near Earth. She laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Look at them, she said to her officers. Like ants trying to stop a flood. This will be over in minutes. She opened a communication channel to the human fleet. Her image appeared on every ship's main screen, 8 feet tall and glowing with divine power. Mortal creatures, she said, her voice echoing in the minds of every human. You have had time to consider our generous offer. Have you come to surrender your pathetic planet? Admiral Carter stepped forward on his own bridge. This is Fleet Admiral Ryan Carter of the United Earth Defense Force. We have not come to surrender. We have come to defend our home. Nyxthera's white eyes widened in surprise, then narrowed with anger. You still refuse to bow before gods? Very well. We will teach you the price of defiance. She raised one hand, and energy began to flow around her body. The crystal hull of her ship started to glow brighter as her psychic power charged the vessel's weapons. But before she could fire, Admiral Carter gave his first order. All ships attack Pattern Alpha. Target their lead vessels. Fire everything we have. The human fleet opened fire with every weapon they possessed. Lasers, missiles, and plasma cannons lit up the space between the two fleets. The USS Relentless, commanded by Captain Danny Foster, led the charge with its heavy guns blazing. But when the human weapons hit the Zephyrian ships, they simply bounced off. The crystal hulls absorbed the energy and scattered it harmlessly into space. Not a single alien vessel was damaged. Nyxthera laughed again. Is that the best you can do? Watch now as gods show their power. She focused her mind on the USS Courage, a heavy cruiser with 800 crew members. Captain Nick Adams had just enough time to shout a warning before the war speaker's psychic energy tore his ship apart. The Courage exploded in a ball of fire that could be seen from Earth. My lord, said one of Nyxthera's officers. They're trying some kind of tactical maneuver. Commander Sarah Kim was leading Squadron 7 in a flanking attack, hoping to get behind the alien fleet. But as her ships moved, the Zephyrians seemed to know exactly what she was planning. Their vessels turned to meet her before she could get into position. They're reading our thoughts, Sarah reported to Admiral Carter. They know what we're going to do before we do it. Carter's jaw tightened. The aliens could predict human tactics because they could see into human minds. How do you fight an enemy who knows your every move? On the stealth frigate USS Shadow, Lieutenant Colonel Beth Turner was watching the battle with growing desperation. Her ship was designed to be invisible to enemy sensors, but she wasn't sure if that would work against beings who could read minds. Then she noticed something that made her heart race with hope. Wait a minute, she said to her tactical officer. Look at their firing pattern. There's a gap between shots. She was right. The Zephyrian ships fired their energy beams in devastating bursts, but there was a brief moment between each shot when the crystal hulls dimmed slightly. It only lasted for 2 or 3 seconds, but it was there. Beth immediately opened a channel to Admiral Carter. Sir, I think I found something. Their ships have a power fluctuation between shots. If we time our attacks right, we might be able to hit them during the vulnerable moment. Carter looked at his displays. They had already lost 12 ships, and the battle had only been going on for 10 minutes. They needed something, anything that might work. All ships, this is Admiral Carter. Implement attack pattern Delta. Wait for the enemy power fluctuations, then concentrate all fire on single targets. The human fleet regrouped and tried the new strategy. The USS Titan, under Captain Tony Miller, waited until he saw the crystal ship in front of him dim slightly, then fired everything he had at the same spot. The alien ship's shields flickered and almost failed. It didn't destroy the vessel, but for the first time in the battle, a Zephyrian ship had been damaged. It works, Captain Miller shouted over the radio. We can hurt them. But their success was short-lived. Nyxthera was furious that mortals had actually managed to scratch one of her ships. She reached out with her mind and crushed the USS Titan like an empty can. Captain Miller and his crew of 600 died instantly. Impossible, she said through gritted teeth. No mortal weapon should be able to penetrate divine shields. In her laboratory on Earth, Dr. Anna Walsh was watching the battle through the Defense Network feeds. She saw the moment when the USS Titan damaged the alien ship, and her mind raced with possibilities. The quantum torpedoes, she said to her assistant Jim Norton. If conventional weapons can hurt them during the power fluctuations, imagine what quantum disruption could do. Are they ready? Jim asked. Anna looked at the prototype weapon she had been working on for the past 4 days. It was crude and untested, but it might be their only hope. Get me a direct line to Admiral Carter, she said. On the Vengeance, Carter was trying to coordinate his remaining ships when Dr. Walsh's face appeared on his personal screen. Admiral, I have something that might help. The quantum torpedoes are ready for field testing. Will they work? Carter asked. I honestly don't know, but they're designed to disrupt energy fields. If the aliens' power comes from manipulating energy, these weapons might be able to interfere with their abilities. Carter looked at the battle display. He had lost 30 ships in the past 20 minutes. At this rate, the entire human fleet would be destroyed within the hour. Send them up, he ordered. We'll try anything at this point. The quantum torpedoes were loaded onto the USS Vengeance and 3 other ships. They looked like normal missiles, but inside each warhead was a device that could theoretically collapse quantum fields. Captain Lisa Johnson, commanding the destroyer USS Storm, was the first to fire one of the new weapons. She aimed at a Zephyrian cruiser that had just finished, destroying a human frigate. The quantum torpedo hit the alien ship during its power fluctuation phase. Instead of bouncing off like every other weapon, it penetrated the crystal hull and exploded inside. What happened next shocked everyone watching. The Zephyrian ship didn't just explode, it seemed to fold in on itself as its own energy fields collapsed. The crystal structure that gave the aliens their power turned against them, and the entire vessel imploded. For the first time in 10,000 years, mortals had destroyed a Zephyrian warship. War speaker Nick Cythera stared in disbelief as one of her ships simply vanished. What kind of weapon was that? She demanded. Her science officer checked the readings from the battle. My lord, they somehow disrupted our quantum matrix. The ship's own power core destroyed it from within. Nick Cythera felt something she had never experienced before. Fear. If humans could build weapons that turned Zephyrian technology against itself, then maybe they weren't as helpless as she had thought. All ships retreat to safe distance, she ordered. We need to analyze this new threat. As the alien fleet pulled back, Admiral Carter allowed himself a moment of hope. They had lost 50 ships and thousands of crew members, but they had proven that the aliens could be hurt. The gods could bleed. This is Admiral Carter to all ships, he said over the fleet channel. Regroup and reload. We're not done yet. The first battle was over, but both sides knew it was just the beginning. The Zephyrians had learned that humans were more dangerous than they appeared, and humans had learned that even gods were not invincible. The war for Earth's survival was just getting started. Emperor Vexthul stood in his throne room aboard the massive flagship Divine Wrath, staring at the holographic display that showed the destroyed Zephyrian ship. For 10,000 years, no mortal species had been able to harm even a single Zephyrian vessel. Now these humans had made one of his ships simply vanish. Explain this to me, he said to War Speaker Nick Cythera, his voice cold as ice. Nick Cythera bowed deeply, fear radiating from her body. My lord, they have some kind of new weapon. It disrupts our crystal matrices and turns our own power against us. Impossible, Vexthul said. We are gods. Our technology is blessed by divine power. No mortal can create weapons that can harm us. Yet it happened, my lord, Nick Cythera replied quietly. I saw it with my own eyes. The Emperor's white eyes blazed with fury. In his rage, energy crackled around his body so powerfully that the air itself began to burn. Several of his officers stepped back in fear. Then we will show them the true power of gods, he said. Summon the Grand Armada. Every ship, every warrior, every weapon we possess. We will bring the full might of the Zephyrian Empire to crush these insects. His High Commander Zorthek looked concerned. My lord, that would leave our home systems undefended. Is it wise to commit everything to this battle? Vexthul turned, his burning gaze on Zorthek. Are you questioning my judgment? No, my lord, Zorthek said quickly. I live to serve. Good. Because I want these humans to understand what happens when mortals dare to spill divine blood. Bring the God-Killer weapons. We will not just defeat them, we will erase them from existence so completely that no trace of their species will remain. The call went out across the Zephyrian Empire. From 50,000 star systems, ships began to gather. The Grand Armada was something that had never been assembled before. Every vessel in the Empire, from the smallest scout ship to the massive dreadnoughts that could destroy entire planets. Back in the Sol system, Admiral Carter was dealing with his own problems. The human fleet had been reduced to less than 150 ships, and they had used up most of their quantum torpedoes in the first battle. "How many more torpedoes can we make?" he asked Dr. Walsh over the communication link. Anna looked tired. She had been working non-stop for days trying to build more of the quantum weapons. "We can produce maybe 50 more in the next 24 hours, but Admiral, we need more than weapons. We need a new strategy." "What do you mean?" "The aliens pulled back after we hurt one of their ships. They're going to study our weapons and find ways to defend against them. When they come back, our quantum torpedoes might not work anymore." Carter felt a chill run down his spine. "How long do you think we have? Based on their technology level? Maybe a day, 2 at most. And when they return, they'll probably bring more ships." On Mars, Commander Rick Stone was pushing his shipyard workers to their limits. They were installing quantum torpedoes on every available vessel, even cargo ships and mining vessels. Anything that could fly and carry a weapon was being pressed into service. "Sir," said Chief Engineer Maya Chen, "the civilian ships won't last 5 minutes in a real battle. Their hulls aren't designed for combat." "I know," Stone replied, "but if the aliens come back with their full fleet, we're going to need every weapon we can get." Meanwhile, in the outer colonies, panic was spreading. On New Terra, Colony Administrator Peter Young was trying to organize an evacuation, but there was nowhere safe to go. "The transport ships can only carry 1,000 people each," he told the Colony Council. "We have 50,000 colonists here. Even if we had enough ships, where would we send them?" Dr. Ben Clark, the colony's chief medical officer, shook his head. "If Earth falls, the aliens will hunt down every human settlement in the galaxy. Running won't save us." "So what do we do?" asked Maria Santos. Peter looked out the window at the families walking through the colony streets. Children were playing in the parks, not understanding that their entire species might be wiped out in the next few days. "We prepare to fight," he said finally. "Even if we can't win, we won't make it easy for them." Far out in space, the Zephyrian Grand Armada was gathering. Commander Mike Thompson, stationed at the Deep Space Monitoring Post near Centauri, was the first human to detect the massive fleet. "This can't be right," he said to his assistant, checking the sensors again. The readings showed a fleet so large that it created gravitational distortions in space itself. 50,000 ships, some of them bigger than Earth's moon, were moving toward the Sol system. "Send an emergency message to Earth," Thompson ordered. "Tell them the aliens are coming back and they're bringing everything they have." The message reached Earth just as Admiral Carter was meeting with President Wade and the military leadership. When they heard the size of the approaching fleet, the room fell silent. 50,000 ships, General Hayes said in disbelief. "We can't fight that many. It's suicide." "So what do you suggest?" President Wade asked. "Surrender? Maybe," Hayes replied. "At least some humans would survive as slaves. That's better than total extinction." Admiral Carter stood up, his face hard with determination. "No, we don't surrender to anyone, no matter how powerful they are." "But Admiral," Hayes protested, "we can't win against 50,000 ships. It's mathematically impossible." Carter walked to the window and looked down at Earth. Cities sparkled in the darkness, home to billions of people who trusted their military to protect them. "You're right," he said. "We can't win a direct fight against that fleet, so we won't fight them directly." Dr. Walsh looked interested. "What do you mean?" Carter turned back to the group. "We can't defend Earth against 50,000 ships, but we don't have to. We just need to make them pay such a high price that they think twice about attacking other species." "I still don't understand," General Hayes said. "Operation Ragnarok," Carter replied. "We evacuate Earth and make our stand somewhere else. Draw their fleet away from populated areas, then hit them with everything we have. Make them remember that humans don't go down easy." President Wade considered this. "Where would we make our stand?" "The asteroid belt around Jupiter. Lots of cover, plenty of space to maneuver. We can use the asteroids to hide our ships and launch surprise attacks." "That's still suicide," Hayes pointed out. "Maybe," Carter admitted, "but it's better than dying on our knees. And who knows, we might get lucky." Dr. Walsh had been quiet during this conversation, but now she spoke up. Admiral, what if we didn't try to fight all 50,000 ships? What do you mean? The aliens are coming here because their emperor is angry. He wants to make an example of us, but what if we made an example of him instead? Carter's eyes lit up with understanding. You're talking about attacking their home system while their fleet is busy here. Exactly. If we could strike at the heart of their empire while their forces are away, we might be able to end this war before they can genocide our entire species. General Hayes looked shocked. That's even more suicidal than defending Earth. How would we even get there? And what could we possibly do against their home defenses? Dr. Walsh smiled for the first time in days. I've been studying their technology. All their power comes from artificial energy sources. If we could disrupt those sources, their entire civilization would collapse, Carter finished. How many ships would we need? Not many. Maybe 50 of our best vessels, fast, quiet, and carrying every quantum torpedo we can build. President Wade looked around the room. So our choice is between making a last stand at Jupiter or launching a desperate attack on the alien homeworld. Why not both? Carter said. Split our forces. Half the fleet makes noise at Jupiter, draws their attention. The other half sneaks around and hits their capital while they're distracted. The room was quiet as everyone considered this plan. It was desperate, risky, and would probably fail. But it was better than surrendering. Do it, President Wade said finally. If we're going to die, let's make sure the galaxy remembers that humans died fighting. As the meeting broke up, each person began preparing for what might be humanity's last battle. The Zephyrian Grand Armada was only hours away, bringing divine wrath to punish mortals who had dared to resist their gods. But humanity had one last card to play. They would show the galaxy that even gods could be surprised by the determination of a species that refused to kneel. The greatest battle in galactic history was about to begin. The Zephyrian Grand Armada arrived at Jupiter like a storm of crystal and light. 50,000 ships spread out across the gas giant's orbit, their hulls glowing with divine power. Emperor Vexithul stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching as his fleet prepared to destroy the human defenders hiding among the asteroids. Find them, he commanded. Every last human ship. I want them all destroyed. The human fleet defending Jupiter was led by Admiral Susan Torres on the USS Liberty. She had 90 ships hidden among the massive rocks that circled the giant planet. It wasn't many, but they were ready to make the aliens pay for every inch of space. Remember the plan, Torres said over the fleet communication channel. Hit them hard, then disappear into the asteroid field. Make them work for every victory. The battle began when the Zephyrian scouts found the first human ships. Energy beams lanced out from the crystal vessels, turning asteroids into clouds of dust and vapor. But the humans were ready. They fired their quantum torpedoes during the aliens' power fluctuations, and several Zephyrian ships vanished in brilliant explosions. Emperor Vexthul watched in growing rage as his scouts were destroyed. How are they still hurting us? Our shields should be immune to their weapons now. His science advisor checked the readings. My lord, they have improved their quantum technology. The disruption patterns are different now. Impossible. Mortals cannot adapt their weapons faster than gods can adapt defenses, but the humans were proving him wrong. Dr. Anna Walsh had spent the last 3 days modifying the quantum torpedoes, changing their frequency patterns to stay ahead of Zephyrian defenses. Each new batch of weapons was slightly different, making it harder for the aliens to protect themselves. However, the battle at Jupiter was just a distraction. While Emperor Vexithul focused his attention on destroying Admiral Torres and her fleet, 50 of humanity's best ships were racing through space toward the Zephyrian home system. Captain Lisa Johnson commanded this strike force from the bridge of the USS Vengeance. With her were the finest ships and crews in the human fleet, including Commander Alex Turner on the stealth vessel USS Ghost and Captain Steve Garcia leading the fighter squadrons. How much longer until we reach their home system? Johnson asked, her navigator. 6 hours, Captain, but we still don't know what we'll find when we get there. Johnson nodded. Intelligence about the Zephyrian homeworld was limited. They knew it was called Astrolux, a planet that floated in space without orbiting a star. The aliens had built an artificial sun to power their civilization, and that sun was the source of their psychic abilities. If Dr. Walsh is right, Johnson said, destroying their artificial sun will cut off their power source. Without their psychic abilities, they'll be as mortal as we are. The plan was desperate and probably suicidal. Even if they reached Astrolux, the planet would be defended. And even if they could deploy Dr. Walsh's quantum weapon, there was no guarantee it would work on something as massive as an artificial star. But it was humanity's only chance to end the war before the Zephyrian Empire wiped out every human colony in the galaxy. Back at Jupiter, the battle was going badly for the humans. Despite their improved weapons, they were vastly outnumbered. The USS Defender, commanded by Captain Jerry Brown, was torn apart by concentrated fire from a dozen alien ships. The USS Guardian, under Captain Ruth Davis, managed to destroy 3 Zephyrian vessels before being overwhelmed. Admiral Torres watched her fleet shrink with each passing hour. They had started with 90 ships and were down to less than 40, but they were serving their purpose, keeping the Emperor's attention focused on Jupiter while Captain Johnson's strike force approached Astrolux. Admiral, her communications. Officer reported, "We're receiving a message from Captain Johnson's fleet. They've reached the Zephyrian home system." Torres felt a moment of hope. Maybe, just maybe, their sacrifice would mean something. At Astrolux, Captain Johnson stared at the most beautiful and terrifying sight she had ever seen. The Zephyrian homeworld floated in the darkness of space like a jewel, its crystal cities catching and reflecting the light from the artificial sun that hung nearby. The star was clearly not natural. It pulsed with a rhythm like a heartbeat, and streams of energy flowed from it to the planet below. "My God," whispered Commander Turner from the USS Ghost. "The entire planet is one giant crystal formation. No wonder their technology is so advanced." But Johnson noticed something that made her heart race with excitement. "Look at the defenses. There are only about 100 ships guarding the planet." She was right. With their entire fleet at Jupiter, the Zephyrians had left their homeworld, almost defenseless. High Priestess Yelthara, the only major leader left on Astrolux, had never imagined that mortals would be bold enough to attack the gods in their own home. "All ships attack formation," Johnson ordered. "Target the orbital defense platforms first, then clear a path to the artificial sun." The battle for Astrolux began with the human ships emerging from hyperspace in perfect formation. Their quantum torpedoes found their targets immediately, destroying 3 defense platforms before the Zephyrians could react. High Priestess Yelthara felt the explosions through her psychic connection to the planet. "Impossible," she gasped. "Mortals cannot be here. This is the sacred homeworld of the gods." But the humans were very much there, and they were fighting with the desperation of a species facing extinction. Captain Garcia led his fighter squadrons in a suicidal charge against the remaining defense platforms, clearing the way for the larger ships to approach the artificial sun. The USS Vengeance raced through the defensive fire, its hull glowing from the heat of near misses. Dr. Walsh's ultimate quantum weapon was mounted in the ship's forward torpedo bay, a device designed to destabilize the exotic matter that powered the artificial star. "Chief Petty Officer Robin Lee to the torpedo bay," Johnson announced over the ship's communication system. "Prepare the quantum disruptor for manual launch." Robin Lee was the ship's best weapons specialist, but even she knew this was a one-way mission. The radiation from the artificial sun would kill anyone who got close enough to deploy the weapon manually. "I understand, Captain," Robin said quietly. "It's been an honor serving with you." She made her way to the torpedo bay, where the quantum disruptor waited. The weapon was larger than a normal torpedo and covered with warning symbols. If it worked, it would cause a chain reaction that would destroy the artificial sun. If it failed, humanity's last hope would die with her. Meanwhile, at Jupiter, Emperor Vex Thule suddenly felt something wrong. His connection to the divine energy that flowed from Astrolux was flickering. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Why do I feel weak?" His communications officer checked the long-range sensors. "My lord, We're detecting weapons fire at Astrolux. The humans have attacked our home world. Vexthul's white eyes went wide with shock and rage. Impossible! How dare they defile the sacred world? But even as he spoke, he could feel his psychic powers fading. The artificial sun that gave all Zephyrians their divine abilities was under attack. At Astrolux, Robin Lee had reached the torpedo bay. The USS Vengeance was taking heavy fire from the remaining Zephyrian ships, and the hull was beginning to crack under the strain. "Robin, you need to hurry," Captain Johnson said over the intercom. "We can't take much more of this." Robin looked at the quantum disruptor one last time, then began the arming sequence. The weapon hummed to life, its exotic components beginning to resonate with the artificial sun's energy field. "Weapon armed and ready, Captain," she reported. "Launching in 10 seconds. The quantum disruptor shot out from the USS Vengeance and flew straight toward the heart of the artificial sun. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the star began to flicker like a candle in the wind. "It's working," shouted Commander Turner from the USS Ghost. "The star is destabilizing." High Priestess Yelthara felt the artificial sun's power failing and screamed in terror, "No, the divine light cannot die, we are gods." But her protests could not stop what was happening. The quantum disruptor had caused a chain reaction in the star's exotic matter core. The artificial sun that had powered Zephyrian civilization for 10,000 years began to collapse. At Jupiter, Emperor Vexthul suddenly felt his divine powers disappear completely. Around him, his officers gasped as they too lost their psychic abilities. For the first time in their lives, the Zephyrians were as mortal as any other species. "My lord," his tactical officer said in a shaking voice, "our ships are losing power. The crystal matrices are going dark." Without their psychic abilities to power them, the Zephyrian ships became nothing more than beautiful but vulnerable crystal vessels. Admiral Torres saw her opportunity immediately. "All ships attack now," she ordered. "Hit them while their shields are down." The remaining human ships at Jupiter opened fire with everything they had. Laser beams and missiles that had been useless before now tore through Zephyrian hulls like paper. Ship after ship of the Grand Armada exploded or surrendered as their crews realized they could no longer fight. Emperor Vexthul watched his mighty fleet being destroyed and felt something he had never experienced before: fear. Without his divine powers, he was just another alien in a damaged ship. "Send a message to all Zephyrian forces," he said quietly. "We surrender."